If you've ever made a decision, you're probably familiar with the concept of FOBO, even if you've never heard the phrase before. It was coined by this guy and stands for fear of a better option. Basically, it's the anxiety that people go through when making decisions, particularly if there are a multitude of different options to choose from. The world is full of choices. Everywhere you look, there's something to choose, something to mull over, something to decide on. Much of that can be overwhelming. Technology promised to make all of this better, easier, and more accessible, but it's actually made things worse. Technology takes the decision-making process and cranks it up to 11. Think about buying a pair of headphones. Which brand should you look at? What features should it have? What color should it be? These are pretty normal questions, but these days they're even more pronounced. Now there are thousands of items to sort through and hundreds of reviews to scour over. That's a lot of information. This is where FOBO really comes into play, and it's a huge part of our everyday lives. When you sort and collect an infinite amount of options, you're going to worry about what you might be missing out on, or if there are better options that you didn't take advantage of, even if you eventually got what you wanted. In fact, that's what makes FOBO particularly bad. No matter how good of a deal you got on a great item or service, with so many other options out there, you might think that you lost out on something better, and that diminishes the feeling of success and happiness. But how exactly? How does FOBO make decision-making so bad? I mean, shouldn't it be a benefit that there are so many options to choose from? The problem is that with so many options, it creates analysis paralysis, and that leads to wasting time and energy. So, what's the answer? How do you overcome FOBO? Well, it's actually pretty simple. First and foremost, make sure you determine the stakes. Determining your stakes when making a decision will automatically make your brain develop a decision-making strategy. This leads to making decisions with more conviction. So, what are the stakes exactly? Well, glad you asked. There are three, as a matter of fact. There are no-stake decisions, low-stake decisions, and high-stake decisions. Like I said, pretty simple, but let's dive in a little deeper to what each one means and how to use them in the real world. So let's start with no-stake decisions. These are typically minor life events. They don't really matter. In fact, don't think of these decisions as correct or incorrect. You probably aren't going to remember them in a few hours anyways. They're really just insignificant in the grand scheme of things. A good example of this is what show or movie to watch, or which news article to read. There are a ton of choices out there, but no matter what you choose, there really aren't any consequences. So don't spend more than just a few moments on no-stake decisions because, again, they just don't really matter. Make a decision and then move on. Okay, so what if you understand all that, but you still have trouble making that decision? Well, in that case, outsource it. Flip a coin, use a dartboard, whatever you want. Since the choice really doesn't matter, neither does the way you make the choice. So get out of the driver's seat and just let Lady Luck decide. Now, low-stake decisions aren't really difficult to make either, but they do require some thinking. They do have consequences, but nothing that's going to break the bank or destroy reality as we know it. They involve more routine things like picking which piece of equipment to buy for work or which restaurant to use for your office Christmas party, that kind of thing. While low-stake decisions do have a little bit of thinking involved, you can still outsource those decisions if you want to. But this time, you want to outsource to an actual person and not just roll the dice. Since there is going to need to be some critical thinking involved and the stakes somewhat matter, you really do need a human being to bounce things off of. To do this, typically just whittle down your choices and then ask someone to make a recommendation. Now here's the important part. After you've asked for the recommendation, take their advice. Don't ask for a different recommendation and don't ask for other people's opinions either. You're trying to make a decision, not play the waiting game. No stakes and low stakes decisions are going to take the majority of your time, but every so often, you've got a high stakes decision to make. This is the big time, and it can be overwhelming. High stakes decisions include things like, which school should I attend? Which job offer should I accept? Where should I move? The bad news is that you're going to have to decide for yourself what really matters. No one else can do that for you. You also need to know the relevant facts, and that requires some work on your part. The good news, though, is that if you've been making no and low stake decisions using the outline method, well, now you have more time on your hands to do research. After you've done your research, the first thing you want to do is decide on a front-runner decision. Now, this decision is simply based on your own intuition from all the information that you've gathered so far. Basically, what is your gut telling you? Your next step is to compare every other option with the front-runner one by one. Compare the two options one at a time and take the best one. Now, here's the trick. Once you've eliminated one option, it's gone forever. It is to never be thought of again, ever. If you keep them around, you're going to get stuck, and this is not going to help anybody. Keep following this process until you get down to one choice. If you can't make a decision at any point, outsource it to a group of qualified people you trust. Ideally, you want an odd number of people so that there's no ties. It's also very important that these people are able to provide you guidance on the topic, and they aren't just people that you like or enjoy being around. They need to know what they're talking about. Once you've made your choice, there's only one thing left to do. Commit. If you follow these steps, you're not always going to make the best decision every time, but you'll certainly make decisions with more confidence, and that will lead to you making better decisions overall. And that, my friends, is pretty powerful. Make the most of it.